Sasha, can lifestyle choices prevent or slow down the disease?
So lifestyle choices definitely have a very intricate interplay into the disease progression. It cannot prevent disease progression, but it can definitely slow it down or speed it up. So lifestyle changes make a big difference, and that is in any brain disease and frankly in any disease that one struggles with. Healthy lifestyle choices are things that we think about, like exercise and food and toxic behaviors such as drugs, alcohol, tobacco, the things that are not good for our brain as well as other body organs. But since we're focusing on our brain, we will focus on that piece of it. So we do know that people who live healthy lifestyles do better. The disease does not progress as quickly, and that they live longer, healthier, higher quality years over time. We have yet to find that golden egg out there that slows it down or prevents. But the actual quality of the life that you live within those years through your HD journey will be far better with a healthy lifestyle. So when you think about diet, we think about a heart healthy diet where we think about low carbohydrates, low sugars, good proteins, good fats. So Mediterranean type of diet is what I think about. And what's good for the heart is good for the brain. And mind you, we all have to feed our soul sometimes. So it's not this very strict, got to stick to it all times. We all have our Sunday fun days, whatever that looks like to you, where we can indulge and enjoy the things that feed our soul as well. But in general, on a day-to-day basis, we need to make good choices in terms of the foods that we eat, all within reason and understanding we are simply humans when it comes down to it. And many of you who are living the HD journey are dealing with lots of everyday heavy stuff. So if that means just a good old Sunday at the end of the day, that's okay too. All right. So be kind to yourselves and give yourself some grace around that. The big stuff to think about too, on top of that, is exercise, exercising most days of the week and doing the cardiovascular exercise, getting out there and moving. It doesn't have to be attending a boot camp or doing some crazy type of exercises. Simply just getting out and going for a walk, move, spend time with family, go for a bike ride, just move, right? Those are important pieces of it. And then avoiding the things that we can when we think about things that are really harmful to the brain and the body, which are things like alcohol, tobacco, recreational drugs. And I speak about recreational drugs, meaning not the type of drugs that are prescribed to us for overall health of physical well-being and mental well-being, but recreational drugs outside of that. And drugs and alcohol can lead to cognitive changes and they can lead to disinhibition and things that can also have an interplay with people who are experiencing Huntington's disease symptoms. So again, all within reason. It doesn't mean you can't have a glass of wine at a wedding or an event, but it means making the right decisions or healthy decisions on most days and trying to stick to that together. And if you can create that lifestyle within your family and your environment, it means that it's going to be much more successful in setting yourself up for healthy habits. So, yes, it does make a difference.
And I will just add socialization. Stay connected with the people that are positive in your life and help support you and things of that nature, because they will also help improve the quality of your life. And they can also help you make good choices for yourself as well.
Yeah, community, right? Community. We're all missing that in this odd place that we've been living in social isolation. It definitely takes a health impact. We know that social part of it is so important to our physical and mental well-being. Thank you, Lisa. That's a great point.
And Lisa, thank you for the, if you guys have anything to add, please add because you just jump in. And I will say thank you for saying to be easy on yourself, because I think that there is that sometimes it's just HD is just so much. And even like Dr. Duffy had never had Annie Ann's pretzels. And then she met me and she started eating Annie Ann's pretzels. I introduced her to
She's
those
just
in the
feeling it
airport.
right now.
I know, at an airport in Las Vegas coming home from
I had a whole experience. The first time I'd ever been to Las Vegas was with Katie in an airport.
which is
Ooh.
not a good person to be the first time in
Ooh.
Vegas then. Lisa, we often hear that care homes won't take people with HD because they are violent and dangerous. Is that true?
HD people are not violent and dangerous. That part is not true. It is true that some care homes will or have heard about the challenges in caring for persons with Huntington's disease, and some of them do not feel equipped and or are scared. And so sometimes they will say that they don't take Huntington's disease, and they'll give you a variety of reasons, but they also, remember, don't necessarily understand Huntington's and have not lived it, and they're going based on what they've heard maybe from other care home administrators and things of that nature. In general, Huntington's persons are not violent and dangerous. Are there challenges with caring for them? Yes. Can some things be difficult? Yes. But that's part of the disease, unfortunately, not necessarily the person. So what I tell people is there are facilities out there that will not take, and you don't want your loved one in those facilities anyways, because they obviously don't want to take the time to learn about Huntington's disease and learn about your person and treat them like a human versus someone with Huntington's disease. So there are facilities that will take chances and will take Huntington's patients and will be amazing. It just takes patience and persistence to find the right fit for your loved ones. Now, that could be 3 months, it could be 3 years. What I tell people to do is start early. It is very challenging to keep your loved ones at home with Huntington's disease for the longevity of the Huntington's journey. Almost all, not all, but almost all of the patients do end up needing a care facility for safety reasons and so that we can prolong the health of the caregiver as well. So start early, work with your Huntington social workers, work with your family and friends, find the facilities that are in your area, talk to them often and early about your Huntington's person. If you can bring your Huntington's loved one to the facility so that they can see your loved one is a person and they aren't violent and dangerous or scary people or someone to be afraid of. You got to tug at the heartstrings. I will say, in my experience, 16 years, pretty much all facilities love their Huntington's person. Like they fall in love with them, just as all of us as professionals have fallen in love with the Huntington's community. And there are some not fantastic facilities out there, but there are a lot of really great facilities. Actually, Dr. Duffy and I saw one just on Friday, and they were having some challenges, and the Huntington's person was getting a little agitated and not getting his water fast enough or his Oreo cookies that he loves. So he was getting in the face of some of the staff, and instead of them, immediately thinking, we can't take care of this person, he's got to get out of here, they were very sensitive and calm and treated him like a human and understanding that he has Huntington's disease. And they just said, sometimes it's really hard for him and we want to help support him, and what can we do? And they were just amazing. And I was floored because I thought for sure they'd be like, you need Lisa, find him a new place. We can't do this. But they didn't, and they took the time. And a lot of those facilities are out there. It just takes time for us to find them.
Sure.
Absolutely.
I'm just going to add real quickly as a psychiatrist is that unfortunately there are times when patients in their Huntington's disease can become agitated that can lead to aggression sometimes. And that's often potentially treatable, but it can be a serious problem. And oftentimes I've seen it in the more junior population, so the juvenile onset, that sometimes the young men can be aggressive and sometimes that can get physical. And so it's really important to be able to address it. And sometimes it could be scary. And once again, it's not their fault. This is not them. This is disease talking. Their behavior is abnormal. And so just for any of you out there who are dealing with that, I know how scary it can be, but also it can also be addressed.
And I'll just add, I had a mom who had a lot of psychiatric symptoms, and she needed to go into a care home in order to get stabilized because she wouldn't take medication. And then when we found her the right place that would give her the medication, when she would refuse the medication, she became stable and was then able to go to a different home. So there's still some different pathways to be taken. But thank you, everyone. Let's see. Dr. Pullis, Do CAA, this is a question, so
That's
I'll
a
read
good
them all.
question.
Yeah, I'll read them all, and then if you need me to revisit them, I will. Just let me know. Do CAA interruptions act as natural stabilizers? Do they help delay the onset of symptoms? Should people get tested to look at their CAA interruptions are? See what they are. See what they are.
Sure, let's define that first. So let's just start with the basics. So let's start with kind of the alphabet of what DNA is, right? So DNA is an alphabet, so to speak. It has its own language, but it's relatively simple because it's 3-letter words. So each letter is what we call a nucleotide, and then 3 letters make a word. That word is an amino acid. And so CAG codes for glutamine. So does CAA. So there's some redundancy in the language. And so you can get glutamine from a CAG or a CAA. So in the expansion, in the gene where the CAG is repeated, you can occasionally get CAAs. Now, what's important is that means the number of glutamines that the protein, once the DNA is read and makes the protein, whether it's a CAA or a CAG, the protein is going to have the same number of glutamines. But it definitely has been shown that if you have interruptions, if you have some of those CAAs, your DNA is more stable. So what do I mean by that? So it's more stable in that it is less likely to undergo somatic instability. So you might have heard that term before. Let me break down what that means. I've already mentioned it already. So somatic, soma is Greek word for body. So somatic just means the cells in your body. Remember, it's different than the germ cells, which are your sperm or your ovaries and your eggs. So soma is all your body. So somatic instability, it means that the DNA in your cells can get longer over time. And in particular, that's most important for the region of the brain that we know is most sensitive to Huntington's. It's the striatum, it's in the middle of your brain. And in those brain cells, over time, if you were born with the CAG repeat of 42 or 44, those cells, the CAG repeat gets longer and longer. And it's thought, we've learned recently in the past decade or so, that it's the threshold of crossing those really long repeats that causes those cells to degenerate. And so when you have CAA in your gene, it's less likely to elongate. It's less likely to have that somatic instability. So it is true that, let's read these again, that the CAA interruption, they act as natural stabilizers for the DNA, not for the protein, but for the DNA. And they help the delay of onset of symptoms because the onset of symptoms are going to occur once you get that somatic instability. Once the cells in your striatum reach, some have shown there's a threshold of about 150, that's when the disease starts, right? So if you have those stabilizers, it can delay the onset. The last question is, should people get tested to look at their CAA interruptions? Currently, that's only for research. And so we've found that through research, that in research, we can look at your DNA and find out how many CAAs, how many CAG repeats. That's how we found this information, because we saw that people with CAA interruptions had a later age of onset. The problem is the way we test clinically for CAG repeats, it does not count the CAAs. So currently, all the labs that are running what we call CLIA, which is a lab that is certified, valid, and accurate for CAG repeat testing, they don't test for CAA. So there's no way clinically for you to know that. Will that change in the future? I don't know. Dr. Duffy, I don't know if you had any more to add on that or clarify, or whether you think that's going to happen in the future, whether they're going to add that or not.
Yeah, I think that this is where our understanding is evolving over time, right? We've identified it, we know it, we understand that it's not simply CAG repeats, that the CAA is playing a role. But once we define the number, the interruptions, how many, how can we translate that into predicting its outcome clinically is what we don't understand. And though we're getting a better handle on it and it's helping us evolve in our understanding of Huntington's disease and the way the disease affects our individuals, we don't have enough of an understanding to translate that into relating it to how an individual is going to do and predicting how they're going to do over time. But what this also helps us understand is when we're targeting things like the CAG expansion for research, or should we really simply be targeting CAG, or do we need to like think about these CAAs in our targeting? I think you described it beautifully, and I think it's a conversation and understanding in the evolution, if I was to simply put it.
And I think it's so interesting, right? Because like we always say testing, then you test positive for HD, right? And then what if you don't have enough CAs and then you don't have the right SNPs and you have this, it's like we're constantly testing, and I feel like letting people down that don't have these right genetic codes, and there's that opens a can of worms, right? Like another thing, like, oh, you tested positive for HD. Now, oh, you don't have the CAA interruptions. You're going to get sicker early. And now having that knowledge, is it knowledge we need to have? I don't know. I think knowledge is power, but
Question.
Yeah.
I think only people living with HD could answer that for us.
Agreed.
Yeah,
We-
knowledge.
We were all very silent right there.
Knowledge is power. And once you can't unknow, and what does that knowledge
Yeah.
actually mean for you, right? It's thinking about even undergoing predictive genetic testing. Most people don't want to know that information, let alone the nuances of that genetic testing. It can be very, very impactful in not a positive way. So you have to be careful about that. I 100% agree.
Yeah, power in both directions, right? Like a positive power or a negative power. Either way,
Yeah.
the knowledge is power, and it's a free slope.
As the wonderful Terry Temkin always said, once you can never unknow, right? It comes to this kind of information.
And there's
Yeah.
some things that are practical. Katie, you had already mentioned that if you have a specific SNP, you might be eligible for a specific gene therapy trial. So that's a little bit different. The CAA interruptions, I think, is a little bit more nuanced in terms of, do you really know? So is it really true that's going to delay your onset? As a group, we find that may be true, but individualistically, knowing that information is probably over interpretation.